Hey guys, it's Spirit, and welcome back to Smite. Today we are doing a first impressions of the newest god, Jormungandr, who is the World Serpent from Norse mythology, so let's get to it.
I am Jormungandr, the World Serpent and ender of your days.
Okay then. Alright, so this is Jormungandr, the World Serpent. He apparently has a lot of voice lines for a big dragon, but anyway, he is a Nordic tank. So we're going to just get some max level here, and I will explain his abilities one by one. First, we have his passive Immovable. He is so large that he cannot be affected by hard displacement. He cannot be knocked in the air, thrown around, because as you can see, his dragon Butte is rooted deep underground, so you cannot knock him around at all. But anyway, any time he would get displaced, he gets dazed, which is a slow that affects him. And let me see, any attack speed buffs the recharge rate of his basic attacks, and his basic attacks do not proc item on hit effects. That's actually kind of weak. That's actually kind of not very good for, especially for a tank, because you're gonna want to use on-hit items for, like, slowing and such. Ah, I see how that works. I wasn't sure, like, just reading his abilities, I wasn't sure how that functions, but as you can see, he's got the little meter in the bottom left, and as you basic attack, he does this AoE attack over time that slows down over time. And I guess, yeah, attack speed, if I'm reading this correctly, speeds up the recharge rate of his little spiral dragon thing over there, so that's actually pretty cool, but I guess it makes sense now, upon seeing it, why it doesn't proc on-hit effects, because that would be a very difficult to balance. Anyway, let me see here. His first ability, Venomous Haze, fires a noxious spit at the area, creates a toxic cloud that damages and slows enemies. Let's see here. I cannot see over your fat head, good sir. There we go. So, Odin has been slowed down. This is actually a perfect opponent for Jormungandr. Or Jormungandr. They say the J is a Y. But anyway, that's basically what his first ability does. And I don't know if it has any interaction with his basic attack, but it does have interaction with all three of his other abilities. His 2 is, let me see here, Consuming Bellow, draws power from nearby toxin clouds while channeling for some odd seconds. At the end of the channel, he roars, dealing damage to all enemies, trembling and slowing enemy gods by 30%. Now, excuse me, for each cloud he consumes, each cloud increases the size of Consuming Bellow and empowers him up to 3 times while dealing extra damage. Extra damage after the first hit is halved, and while empowered, his basic attacks fire at its fastest rate. So, okay. So, basically, he charges himself up, and it gets stronger the more of these you consume in the process. And at the end, he fires off an AoE that slows and, does it? It's slow. Yeah, it slows and trembles all enemy gods nearby, so I'm gonna have to do this right on top of your face, good sir. Come here. Come here. And boom. Yep, you're walking off course, just like Bacchus's ultimate. And I wasn't sure. I don't know if I saw the Empower, but he was supposed to get the Empower thing. Each cloud empowers him up to 3 times, so I maybe have to do it while consuming this. I see the buff. I'm not sure what it does. It doesn't feel very impactful. I can't really feel it in the play. What does it do even? Oh yes, his basic attacks fire at max rate. So if you do it while you have a poison cloud, then the Empower will let his basic attack thing not slow down over time as it does normally. So, I guess that's kind of useful. But anyway, onto his third ability, Submerge. He submerges into the ground and gets a predatory sense that can see enemies in a wide radius. If any of you have played League of Legends, I'm assuming this is basically Rek'Sai. Can I see through walls? I'm gonna have to wait until it recharges to test that, but yeah, apparently... There we go. Reset cooldown, there we go. Can this see through walls? I can see through walls anyway. This isn't a very good test. Oh, it can! It can see through walls, because I can see those guys over there. But anyway, this is basically a pseudo-stealth. He goes underground and you are stealthed. And when you emerge from the ground, you knock up all enemies around you. And if you emerge through a toxin cloud, it creates 2 new ones in the direction you are facing with a lower duration. And of course, like all good stealths, taking damage during it will negate the effect. So we're going to put down a poison cloud and submerge. And we're going to come up right in the middle. And it creates more poison clouds. And I'm going to come over here, reset the cooldown, and then see what we can do if we come up right underneath him. I was trying to come up right underneath him to get the knock-up effect, but boom, there we go. That's some nice CC. I mean, any good tank worth its salt needs some crowd control. He doesn't really seem to have much crowd control. I mean, he's got a couple of slows. His 1 and his 2 can slow, especially in combination. And that's a knockout, but he doesn't really seem to have any hard CC. So, let us move on to his ultimate ability, the World Serpent. He prepares to enter the world, enlarging as he prepares, and after selecting a target area, he flies into the air, diving down and crashing into enemies as his body then slams into the ground. Must travel 2 more times, and if he emerges and submerges during this ability, he knocks up enemies, and with each submerge, he leaves behind a toxic cloud. Okay, so what I assume this is going to do, I haven't test-fired this ability, so this is going to be my immediate reaction to it, my honest reaction to it. I assume it's going to fly up into the air, kind of like Ao Kuang's ultimate, and then crash down into a submerged form, and you have to, like, bounce 2 more times. Alright, boink. There we go. Ah, that is terrifying. Oh my gosh. And it leaves a poison cloud every time you, I think it's unsubmerge over a god. I'm gonna have to check that out. But he seems very, very slow. I'm just using that to get back to the cooldown thing. But I'm gonna test fire this and see if it leaves a poison cloud. Yeah, it leaves a poison cloud every time. But it displaces gods that you land on or come up under. And I assume that counts, yeah. Yeah, it counts as a submerge while he dives underground. So you can come up through an existing poison cloud and have the effect happen, I guess. I'm actually going to test that here in a second. Okay, so if he comes up through an existing poison cloud, normally it creates 2 more. So... bonk? No, it doesn't give the... It doesn't give the submerge effect of creating 2 more in front of him, but it's still a really... It looks really impressive, although he's a tank, so I'm not sure how much damage it's going to deal. I almost feel like he'd be better off as a warrior, because a lot of these abilities, aside from like his passive and his unique basic attack progression, seem like the kind of things that are geared toward like attacking, offensive. I mean, this is a stealth. How many tanks do you know of that need a stealth? So with the low amount of CC he's got and the high amount of like offensive punch, I feel like he would be better off as a warrior, almost, because if he was a warrior, then you could balance him between offense and defense, and you could have him still be sort of tanky. You know, he's the massive dragon that can't be slain that easily, but you could also have him doing a ton of physical damage, and I don't know if his thing here would crit. That would be absurd. If that was physical and you could make it crit on every attack, that would be just ridiculous. But anyway, this has been Jormungandr. I don't think I need to show item builds. I mean, he's a tank. You're going to want to build tanky. But, you know, honestly, I'm curious. How much damage could I do?
This and make its strength my own.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much damage I could deal if I just went all-out offense and made him a glass cannon tank. Let's see. How much does his... Come here. Come here. Come back here. How much does this do? 70 damage a shot. My gosh, that's... I don't know if that's going to be that impressive, but let's just come over here and fight. Let's do a raw first. Let's see. I'm going to Poison Cloud you. And then I'm going to... Kaboom! Ow, ow, ow! Okay. Okay,
It shall burn long after you are but dust.
You talk a lot for a big dragon who's supposed to be a giant monster. But anyway, yeah, that didn't really feel too impactful. I had to use, like, most of the abilities in his kit in combination just to do a slight bit of something. Although the basic attack spray is a lot more powerful than it ought to be. Dang it, dang it. Okay, I'm going up. Let's see. See what his... Ow! My gosh. Crunch. That's actually really good, actually. I just said actually like 3 times, but anyway, that's actually kind of good. I mean, granted I am built pure mage right now, and I took a lot of damage doing that, but he seems like the kind of character that doesn't really have a niche. Like, they called him a tank and they gave him tank stats, but then they gave him a kit that sort of is more geared toward offensive play, so I'm not really sure how to use him. He might be good played like Hades, you know, a pseudo-tank, pseudo-mage, but again, I'm not really sure. His abilities, keep in mind, that build that you're seeing in the lower right-hand corner is my Poseidon build. That's the build I put on all of my burst mages to delete people in like 2 button clicks, and he was barely able to kill Ra after unloading his whole kit. So, he doesn't really do that much damage, he doesn't really have that much CC. He's got some cool aesthetics, though. I mean, you're playing as a giant dragon that cannot be knocked around because he's rooted into the ground. That's pretty cool. But I almost feel like Jormungandr was made more for style points than functionality, because... I mean, he wouldn't really be my first choice. He's a bit too complex. He's got a bit too much secondary buff, if this hits, if this combos, if this does, and it doesn't really... There's not any... Well, of course, there's some big-ticket items, like a tank with a stealth, or the ability to, like, leap around the map. That's pretty flashy and pretty cool, but I feel like they focus way too much on making his abilities complex, rather than making him a playable tank, like they apparently wanted to, because they made him a tank. But anyway, this has been the new god in Smite, Jormungandr the World Serpent. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw, please leave a like. If you want to see more, then please do subscribe, and make sure to follow me on social media so you never miss an update. Until next time, I'm Spirit, and I will see you all later.